A rhyme you'll never hear the same way again. Goosey, goosey, gander. It sounds like a sweet old nursery song, right? Cheerful, simple, something from childhood. But what if it's not what it seems? What if those gentle lines hide something darker? Something whispered in secret centuries ago? This isn't just a children's song. It's a coded warning, born in a time of fear, faith, and persecution. Get ready, because once you know the truth, you'll never forget it. The Old Man in the Ladies' Room. Let's go back to the rhyme. Goosey, goosey, gander, where shall I wander? Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. There I met an old man who wouldn't say his prayers, so I took him by his left leg and threw him down the stairs. It sounds silly, even absurd, but think about it. What's an old man doing in a lady's bedroom? Why mention prayers? And why the left leg? Why the stairs? None of this is random. Every word means something, and behind it, a brutal truth. In 16th and 17th century England, left-footer was a slur used for Catholics. It was mocking, hostile. The old man in the rhyme? He wasn't just a character. Many believe he was a Catholic priest, hiding in someone's home. And being thrown down the stairs, that wasn't a metaphor. It was real. It happened, again and again, when prayer became a crime. It started with Henry VIII. He wanted to divorce Catherine of Aragon and marry Anne Boleyn, but the Pope said no. So Henry broke from Rome and made himself the head of a brand new English church. From that moment on, being Catholic became dangerous. Under Queen Elizabeth, things got even worse. After several failed plots by Catholics, she passed harsh new laws. Any Catholic priest who set foot in England was instantly guilty of treason. And treason meant one thing: death. But it wasn't just the priests who paid the price. Those who helped them, they lost everything: their homes, their freedom, sometimes even their lives. The priest hidden in the dark. Imagine this. Just behind the wall, someone is there, silent, still, not even breathing. Only a few inches of brick separate him from the men who could arrest him, torture him, and have him killed in front of a crowd. This isn't fiction. This was England in the 16th century. After breaking from the Pope, King Henry VIII declared himself the head of a new English church. To some, it sounded like politics, but for thousands of people, it became a nightmare. The faith of their fathers, the Catholic Church, was now illegal. The Mass was a crime, and the priests who led it were enemies of the crown. They were hunted, dragged from homes in the middle of the night, beaten, imprisoned, called traitors, executed in the town square to show everyone that the old world was gone. But faith doesn't die on command. In lonely estates, in quiet villages, in ivy-covered manors, families still gathered in secret. They welcomed hidden priests, confessed, prayed, held Mass by candlelight, risking everything. To protect them, families built hiding places, not for animals, for people, small, cramped, airless, built behind fireplaces, under staircases, inside walls. They were called priest holes, just in case the hunters came. Sometimes they did. Then began the game of silence. Boots on stone, shouting, doors slamming. The whole house searched, top to bottom. Even the ladies' chamber wasn't off limits. They checked everything, tapped every wall, watched every step. And behind that wall, a man, a priest, knees numb, chest tight, heart pounding in his ears. He knows, if they find him, it's over. And if they don't, he might still die. Alone, sealed in. This is where the strange old rhyme begins, the one about a goose, an old man, a prayer refused, and a staircase, a nursery rhyme born in an age of fear. Where every word still echoes with the past, a rhyme we'll never hear the same way again. When breathing becomes a luxury, imagine it, a narrow space, just barely wider than a human body. Cold stone pressing against your back and chest. Darkness so deep, it feels heavy. The air is thick, damp, hard to swallow. Even breathing is risky, because every sound, every breath, could mean death. A priest sits still. He hasn't moved for hours, maybe a day, maybe two. He's lost track of time, His knees are numb, his muscles ache, his head spins. Sometimes he feels like he's fading out, but he can't fall. There's no room. Beyond the wall, life continues. Floorboards creak, doors slam. Someone speaks, loud, rough, with the voice of authority. They're priest hunters, men who treat faith as a crime, men who see capturing a fugitive priest as a path to money and power. They raid without warning, with dogs, with crowbars, with suspicion in every glance. They tear the house apart, from the kitchen to the master bedroom. They search trunks, floors, beams, walls. Even women's rooms are not off limits. If they have to, they'll smash the fireplace, pull down stone, rip open ceilings. They're looking for a smell, a trail, a breath. And behind the wall, a man. He hears footsteps, a board cracking, someone coughing, voices louder and closer, the sound of boots coming straight for him. His heart pounds so loud, he's sure they'll hear it. He squeezes a small wooden cross in his hand. It's ice cold. He mouths a silent prayer. Not a whisper, just breathless words. Sometimes these searches lasted days, sometimes longer. Families slipped water and bread to the priest through tiny holes, if they could. But if the household was taken, it ended. The priest was left behind, alone, in a stone tomb. No light, no hope, no air. He died slowly, from thirst, from suffocation, from fear, and silence became his final prayer. Centuries passed, but the walls remembered. In the mid-20th century, workers renovating an old estate found a hidden niche behind the wall, sealed off. Inside, a skeleton. Beside it, a rosary and a wooden cross. No one knows his name. They say he died sitting up, just as he had lived those last hours, waiting, hoping that one day someone would open the door and whisper, "You can breathe now," the left leg, and a mark of faith. In Old England, even your body could betray your beliefs. Catholics were mocked as left-footers, as if they walked wrong, as if they didn't belong. The word was a slur, a warning, a way to label someone as other. It followed you like a shadow. You couldn't shake it. That's why the old rhyme, the one about the goose and the old man, mentions the left leg. It's not just a weird detail. It's a secret signal, not about walking, about faith. In the 16th century, England was split in two. On one side, the Anglicans, who accepted the king as head of the church. On the other, the Catholics, still loyal to Rome, the Pope, and the old ways. To the new regime, Catholics weren't just different. They were dangerous. They were seen as traitors, fanatics, even enemies of the state. Left-footer came to mean untouchable. People avoided them, sat far away, watched their every move. One wrong gesture, making the sign of the cross the old way. Whispering Latin during prayer. That's all it took. A neighbor could turn you in, a servant, even family. That's why the line, "I took him by his left leg," hits differently today. It's not a child's prank, it's something else. It's violence, it's shame, it's a public punishment, symbolic and cruel. And it was real. Thrown down the stairs, stripped of body and soul. In Old English houses, a staircase wasn't just wood and stone. It was a symbol of class, of rank, of how close you stood to God. To fall down the stairs wasn't just to fall. It was to be punished, to be cast down in every sense. Historical records tell us that those who refused to swear loyalty to the new church were often brought down, literally, pushed, dragged, thrown. It wasn't just removal. It was humiliation. Sometimes priests were pulled from their hiding places by the legs, dragged down the stairs, into the basement, into a cell, or straight to their death. So when that old rhyme speaks of a left leg and a fall down the stairs, it's not random, it's memory, encoded in verse. A memory of a time when faith was judged not by prayer, but by which foot you stepped with. And the irony? Over time, those same words turned into a children's song. Something playful, harmless, little voices chanting about geese and an old man, never realizing they were repeating a line from history's darkest joke. The left leg, once a mark of loyalty to the old faith. The staircase, a path down to disgrace and death. And the laughter of children, just the echo of an age when one wrong step could cost you your life. A prayer that never came. The old rhyme says he wouldn't say his prayers. It sounds simple, harmless even. But in 16th century England, those words could mean something else entirely. They could mean a death sentence. After Henry VIII broke from Rome and created his own church, prayer stopped being a matter of the soul. It became a matter of power. How you prayed and what language you used could decide your fate. Catholics still prayed in Latin, the language of their ancestors, of their memory, of their faith. But to the new English crown, Latin sounded like defiance, like treason, like the voice of the old god, echoing in a kingdom that no longer wanted him. The new regime wanted something else. They demanded English prayers, not to the Pope, but to the king. This new prayer was really a loyalty oath in disguise, and many couldn't bring themselves to say it, not because they hated the crown, but because it felt like betrayal, not just of faith, but of self. The response was brutal. Refuse the right prayer? Then you're an enemy. First, they tried persuasion, then force. Priests and lay people were arrested, beaten, pressured to give up everything they believed in. But this wasn't just punishment, it was theater. Torture became a show. Crowds gathered to watch as a priest, once a man of peace, was stretched on the rack, his joints tearing, his body breaking. And when the screams died down, they brought him down. Not to save him, but to finish the act. The noose, the wheel, the fire. All to prove that someone who refused to pray correctly was no longer fully human. Sometimes it happened in public squares, in broad daylight with bells ringing. Other times, in prison yards, in silence. The executioners knew their craft. But the worst part wasn't the pain, it was the choice. Say the wrong prayer and live, or stay true to your own and die. Thousands chose the second, because real prayer isn't about words. It's about what you're willing to die for, even in silence. And maybe that's why in the old rhyme, the man says nothing, not because he doesn't know how to pray, but because his prayer is inside, the one he's not allowed to speak, the kind they kill you for. But the story doesn't end there. Old rhymes never live just one life. They shift. They change. Each version holds a mirror to its time, its morals, its fears, its secrets. The version we know today, with the stairs, the prayer, and the strange old man, might not be the original. There's an earlier version printed in the late 18th century, and it's very different. No stairs, no falling, no mention of prayer. Instead, we get something else entirely. A cup of fortified wine and a slice of ginger. At first, it feels confusing. What do wine, spices, and geese have to do with each other? But when you stop listening to the surface and start feeling what's underneath, another picture begins to form. One that's more physical, more indulgent, more sinful. Wine, spice, and something forbidden. The wine mentioned in the old rhyme wasn't just any drink. It was sack, a strong, sweet wine imported from Spain and the Canary Islands. In 16th and 17th century England, sack was everywhere. People drank it in taverns, at noble banquets, behind closed doors, during songs filled with innuendo. It wasn't just wine. It was pleasure, celebration, temptation in a glass. Now add ginger. Back then, ginger was believed to be a powerful aphrodisiac. It warmed the body, stirred the imagination. People mixed it into food, drinks, and secret meetings. So when sack and ginger show up in the same line, this isn't about prayer, this is about flesh. And what about the characters in the rhyme? The goose and the gander. In street slang of that time, a goose was a woman in the sex trade. A gander, the man seeking her out. Even kids knew this. People whispered it, joked about it, and sometimes got punished for it. Now think of this line, upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. Doesn't that sound like a secret visit? Someone sneaking through the house, heading for someone's room, knowing they're expected. Suddenly, the stairs aren't a place of punishment. They're a path to forbidden pleasure. And the geese? not birds, but the ones who live in that shadow. So maybe this rhyme means something else. Maybe it's not about faith. Maybe it's about temptation. Not about punishment, but desire. That changes everything. So what are we really looking at? Two different versions of the same rhyme? Or two layers of the same world? One out in the open, the other hidden in the dark. In one, there's a priest hiding behind the wall. In the other, a man creeping up the stairs toward a woman he shouldn't be with. And between them, one word: goose. One man runs from execution, the other from his wife. And in both stories, the ending is the same. Someone gets caught, and someone pays the price. Lust, hidden in a rhyme. Listen closely, and the old nursery rhyme begins to sound different. Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. Is it just a silly line? Or a hint? A coded message for those who knew where to look. A cup of sweet wine, a slice of ginger, a quiet evening, heavy curtains, the creak of wooden stairs. An unseen visitor climbs to her room, not to pray, but for pleasure. Rhymes like this passed from hand to hand, whispered over ale, printed in cheap street pamphlets sold by boys in alleyways. The childish tone covered something much more adult, a clever mask of mischief, wrapped in a bedtime song. Because in old London, sin and virtue lived side by side. The gallows stood across from the pub. The church faced the brothel, and over all of it, a double standard: condemnation from the pulpit, a visit to the red light district after service, and from that world came a new phrase: the Winchester geese. These were women licensed to work in brothels along the south bank of the Thames. The district was called the Clink. Their work was legal, and it was blessed by the Bishop of Winchester. Yes, the same churchman whose title became a bitter joke. These women had no names, no dignity, and no peace after death. When they died, no one said prayers. The same church that allowed them to sell their bodies refused to bury them as Christians. They were called the outcast dead, cast out in life and again in death. They were buried outside the city in shallow dirt. No crosses, no markers, no words, just covered up, like shame, like garbage. Today that graveyard still exists. It's called Crossbones. There's an iron gate wrapped in ribbons, beads, old jewelry. People hang notes. You were never filth. Your life mattered. Forgive us. Visitors don't just bring flowers. They bring memory. For all the forgotten. For all the judged. For all the women reduced to a line in a rhyme full of hidden meaning. A children's rhyme, turned into a memorial of silent shame. And the word goose? No longer funny. Now it cuts deep. So we have to ask, if even a rhyme about geese leads us to a graveyard, what else did we grow up singing without ever knowing what it really meant? The goose bite. In 16th century London, this phrase wasn't a joke. He got bitten by a goose, they said, and everyone knew what it meant. Not a bird, not a tease, but a warning. A man had spent the night with a woman from the streets, and came back with more than memories. The words spread in whispers, in taverns, in alley plays. It was slang, a diagnosis, a curse. Men who had been bitten often tried to hide it, but the signs always showed, on the skin, in the way they walked, in how they spoke. And then everyone knew. He had been with her, with the one no one named, with the goose. But the real danger wasn't the disease itself. It was what came after. Because he didn't come back alone. He came home, to his wife, to the lady of the house, the one in the rhyme. He crept back up the stairs, late at night, pretending nothing had happened. But he carried it with him, the smell of the streets, the weight of wine, the heat of another body, and something else, something he couldn't wash off. That sickness, born on the south bank of the Thames, made its way into the quiet bedrooms of northern London, into elegant homes, into families with good names, and it broke them, bodies, trust, futures. Now the line upstairs and downstairs sounds different. It's not just directions, it's a path, a loop, from the ladies' chamber to the dark room across town, and back again. until one day it didn't loop anymore. And that line, "He wouldn't say his prayers," takes on a new meaning. Because praying means confessing, admitting, asking for forgiveness. But he didn't. Not to God, not to his wife, not even to himself. Maybe he thought he'd get away with it. That the rhyme would stay just a game, that no one would ever know. But Old English rhymes are rarely that simple. They hold layers. One verse might carry 3 stories. One about sin, one about sickness, one about a man who gave up his faith. And all of them lead to the same place, the stairs, up, down, to the dark, where breath is short, where silence is punishment, and where the wrong words, or no words at all, can still cost you everything. Where's the truth? In prayer or in wine? Sometimes the darkest story hides behind the lightest form. That may be the case with this old rhyme. It's short, rhythmic, at first even a little silly. But behind those simple words, like behind a mask, lie meanings far too grown up for a child's ears, and far too dangerous to speak aloud. Scholars tend to agree on one thing: this rhyme is a hybrid, a patchwork, like a quilt stitched together from scraps of different songs, from different centuries, with different intentions. There are echoes of religious satire, the memory of those who stayed silent but never lost faith. There are pieces of street folklore, full of playful, vulgar hints. And deep inside, there may be a whispered warning. Watch your step. Watch your words. Watch who you lie with. Watch what you believe. These kinds of songs lived on the edge, between the tavern and the church, between the bedroom and the confessional, between the fear of getting caught and the longing to be understood. Today, these lines are sung by children, lightly, thoughtlessly, as part of a game. But once, they may have been a code, a secret signal among those who knew, a way to say something that couldn't be said out loud. Because in that world, faith and desire lived side by side. One man could kneel in church in the morning and sip sack with ginger at night, hold a cross in one hand and a coin for a goose in the other, and if anyone tried to break free from that cycle, they were stopped, quickly, brutally, permanently. So where's the truth in this rhyme? In the prayer, in the wine, in the staircase leading up and down, in the refusal to pray, or the refusal to confess? Or maybe the truth is the rhyme itself, the fact that it survived, outlived its characters, outlived its era. It never revealed its secret, but it never let us forget. And maybe that's why we should still listen, not to laugh, but to wonder.